need to read a statement, and then I'll ask for a motion. The Ad Hoc Committee concerning Rutherford County employees carrying guns while on the job when not listed as part of the employee's job requirements and/or duties is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in the light of coronavirus. Do I have a motion? Sheriff, do I have a second? Second it. Mr. Elam.
I'll call the roll. Director Clark. Here. Director Elam.
Yes.
Sheriff Fitzhugh.
Yes.
Director Stevenson.
Here.
Mr. Christensen. Okay. Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Chairman Reed.
Mr. Chairman, we have a hard copy of the minutes. I have those up on the table up there, but I have read through those. In fact, I've read through them 3 or 4 times, read them this morning from our last meeting, and I find no problem in what we did at the last time, and I move that they be approved.
Do I have a second? Sheriff Fitzhugh. Okay, call.
Director Clark.
Yes.
Director Elam.
Yes.
Director Stevenson.
Oh. I'm sorry, I said.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. But your vote, though, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Sheriff Fitzhugh. Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I also at this time want to recognize Chairman Reed.
Mr. Chairman, one reason that I made the motion at the steering committee to have this meeting was there were concerns about the legal notice that we had sent out prior. We do have copies. The legal notice that we sent out for the other meeting, we sent out 3 different times. We sent it out once. It had to be canceled. In fact, we have copies of what we sent to the Daily News Journal. We had to call and cancel it the first time. We tried to have the meeting a second time, went through the same process. We had to cancel that in the newspaper again, and then the third time we sent it out again. So there was difficulty in getting that legal notice out at the first, trying to get that first meeting done. Due to COVID, due to employee schedules, due to these individuals you see here who are quite busy in what they do. So I just wanted to make sure today, I think it's important that the legal notice was sent out for this meeting on January the 4th. It has appeared in the Daily News Journal, and that legal notice was sent and corrected. Start date, we sent it to them on the 4th, and it started on the 7th, and it has been printed. So I just want to make a motion that be recognized that we have sent legal notice for this meeting, and it was approved through legal.
And was it also properly described as to what the meeting is about?
Yes, it did. It went through and explained that this would be the ad hoc committee dealing with the employees' job requirements and handbook.
Thank you. Is there a second? Sheriff Fitzhugh? Okay, vote.
Director Stevenson. Yes. Director Clark.
Yes.
Director Elam.
Yes.
Sheriff Fitzhugh. Yes. Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes. All right, let's get started. This ad hoc committee was formed by the steering committee to discuss employees carrying guns while on the job when not listed as part of the employee's job requirements or duties. We have discussed this last time, gentlemen, and through some concerns, we were asked to come back because we didn't properly describe it in the I lost my train of thought here, in our notice. So what I asked us to do is we're going to, as being department heads, I'm going to ask each one for their opinion on this, summarize as to what we said because it's in the minutes, but I want to go back through it again and make sure that we address this to the fullest of our ability. And once everybody talks, then we will ask for a vote concerning changing the policy. The vote will be on changing the policy of allowing employees to carry guns into a workplace. All right? So that's the question. It's not about Second Amendment. It's about policy. All right? I'm going to let Chris Cart go first. And you can either come up here since there's a group, or you can stay right there. I just assume you stay right there if it's up to me.
So when we talk about employees carrying weapons while on duty, I have some very big concerns concerning our paramedics and firefighters. Number one is a lot of times we're entering a scene where there's not a weapon and we're bringing one in. Number two is that in a square box is confined. We have a lot of times we have combative patients, whether it's an accidental discharge, whether it's somebody takes a weapon away from somebody, and so it has a big concern for us on the fire trucks. On the fire trucks, we don't have the storage for weapons. We don't have the training for those guys. And
hold on just a second.
Yes.
Can y'all hear back there? Everybody good? Okay, go right ahead, kids.
So it kind of causes concern with fire and EMS, even emergency management when we talk about those firearms. There are some that are trained in those areas. That is part of the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department. Those people will go through training just as the police officers do. Those guys have been involved with the Sheriff's Department for many years, and they have to perform the same training. Those guys are identified as our tactical medics. But we have some big concerns where weapons are not there, and now we're introducing a weapon into that scene.
Now I'm going to go to County Attorney, and I'll ask you a couple of questions. Now, the law expressly allows for the county to prohibit from someone carrying a gun based on our policy. Is that correct?
Chairman Harris, yes, that's correct. Under, let me cite it correctly here, TCA 39-17-1314 B1, state law expressly allows for a county government to regulate by policy the carrying of firearms by employees when acting in the course and scope of their employment. And as I understand it, currently the county policy with respect to employees is to not allow an employee to carry a weapon or a gun unless it is within the scope and duty of their job function. So, for example, a sheriff's deputy obviously has a need as a performance of protection of the safety of the citizenry and apprehending criminals, et cetera, that there would be an essential function of their job duty is to be properly trained and to carry a weapon. So at current, the policy that the county has in place is lawful and is in accord with state law.
Okay, and one of the things, I've kind of looked at this, and I want to go over everything. I want to be pretty thorough on this. I need you to explain to this board, to this chairman, and to this people in the dais, what is the statute of the state Trump statute? Could you explain that?
Yes, I'm happy to address that. So the state has what's called a trunk storage statute, and that's found in TCA 39-17-1313A. And essentially what it says is that while the county can regulate, I'm paraphrasing and I'm kind of blending here, but while the county can regulate the carrying of firearms by its employees when acting within the scope and course of their employment, that authority is subject to the limitations of the trunk storage statute. And essentially, that statute would not allow the county to prohibit employees who are handgun carry permit holders from storing their handgun in their motor vehicle that is parked in a public or private parking area. Now, if there is an employee who uses a county vehicle as part of their job, I think the county could similarly restrict the ability to carry a handgun because it's still, they're performing a job function for the county and it's a county vehicle. So you could do it that way, but the individual's private vehicle that they store in the parking lot or the parking garage while they're at work, the county cannot prohibit a county employee from having a gun in their trunk or their car.
Okay, and also what I need to know is, can you please describe the immunity? Once a gun is negligently fired, explain to us the immunity of the county.
Sure, and we, in my practice in defending the county, this comes up regularly under the Governmental Tort Liability Act, and that is to say that it's with a governmental entity as big as ours, you're bound to have incidents that happens. There's car wrecks, there's slip and falls, that stuff that happens. But those same types of things, the law that's applicable to those things are also applicable to any negligent act or omission of an employee. Generally speaking, governments are immune from suit, and that goes back to the days of England, sovereignty. But the legislature years ago, and this is pretty common amongst states and local governments, they passed the Governmental Tort Liability Act, which removes that immunity for certain occurrences. And one of those occurrences is that immunity from suit, generally speaking, is removed for the negligent acts of your employee. So if you have an employee that negligently drives a vehicle and gets in a car accident with another employee, or if you've got an employee that didn't clean up a spill and a citizen's in the building and slips and falls or whatever, that immunity that we enjoy is removed and we can be subject to suit. So that has a corollary here to this situation, that if we affirmatively allow, that's the key word, affirmatively. So we're voicing a policy that says we're going to allow employees to carry guns wherein that employee doesn't have an essential job function that requires a gun. And if that employee negligently discharges the weapon, or if it falls out of a purse or a bag on accident and kills somebody or shoots somebody, or any other myriad of facts, which we all know there's thousands of variations that could occur, some negligent and maybe even some intentional, that by having this policy in effect that affirmatively allows them to carry guns, a good lawyer who's representing somebody that could sue the county may try to argue that the immunity from suit's waived because there is a more closer connection between the employee and the government because we've allowed them to carry their guns. And if the employee was negligent and somebody's injured, under what's called respondeat superior principles, they're going to be able to connect it better to the county. Right now, we have a policy that doesn't allow it. And so if somebody were to come with a gun and it negligently discharges, I would try to argue that was an intentional act of the employee, and we are immune from intentional acts from employees. For example, if you have a teacher or any county employee that gets into a fight while on the job and punches a citizen, we might want to argue that we're immune from that because that was an intentional tortious assault by an employee. Similarly here, if we have a policy in effect that says you can't bring guns, and an employee brings a gun and it goes off or they use it, I would try to argue that we're still immune from suit. We kind of lose those defenses if we affirmatively allow them to carry guns. Again, let me reiterate, that's just a legal position on it. I'm not taking a stance, and our office doesn't opine on whether it's good policy or bad policy. I'm just letting you know of some of the legal issues that could arise if there's a negligent discharge of a weapon by a county employee whose job functions do not require them to carry a gun.
Okay. So my question is, law states that Rutherford County can have a policy to not allow guns.
Yes, but to be more specific, we can have a policy that prohibits our employees while on the job from carrying weapons. This doesn't apply to the general citizenry who enter and exit county buildings. There are separate sets of statutes and requirements for that.
But in any way, is this policy trampling on one's Second Amendment?
I do not think so, and I do not think that this policy that we currently have in effect is unlawful, nor is it unconstitutional.
Thank you. All right. I have a tremendous amount of respect for our sheriff, and I think he keeps us safe, and I have confidence in you. But I want to first get your opinion, and then I want to talk about the state of our county as far as safety. So, Sheriff, would you please tell us whether you are for or against this policy changing?
Well, I guess to answer your question right off, as I understand the policy now is do not. And my feeling is to keep that policy in place. Do what?
Got it turned on?
It was on.
On up here.
That's all I get. Can you hear me now? Okay. The policy, as I understand it now, is that the employees are not allowed to carry while on duty, the exception being the sheriff's office. And I'm in favor of keeping that policy in place. One of my concerns, and I think the attorney has addressed that, but one of my concerns is that, as I understand, if a county allows employees to carry weapons, there could be an implied by the county that they are there for protection of other people. If they act, then the county could be sued on that. And I know in reading some information from various states, that's one of the problems that has come up, is an implied by the county that for safety of other employees or the people, that if they allow them to carry weapons, then they assume that liability. So I'm for that, and because of the liability situation, I'm in favor of keeping the policy the way it is.
Sheriff, have we, how many instances have we had of any type of workplace assault or weapons, someone carrying a weapon in a workplace, or any shootings in the workplace?
None that I'm aware of here in our county.
Okay, and then my other question to you is, does the Sheriff's Department have an assessment of buildings, a plan, suggestions in case of emergency?
We do provide assessments. We do this for churches, and we can do it for county employees or county buildings, where we can make an assessment of your facility and then give recommendations to the people in that facility as what they can do for safety, or any policies or entrances or things of that nature that can be changed. So we do that, yes.
Are there any questions for Sheriff? Sheriff, thank you. Next, I want to, Sonia, come up. And I want you to discuss policy as to what it is right now and your assessment as to whether we need to change it.
Good morning. So currently, our policy does not allow for our employees to carry within the building, within the county property, unless it's part of their job designation, unless they're authorized to do so. And I checked with our sister agencies that are similar in size: Knox County, Hamilton County, City of Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis, Shelby County, all of the Metro Nashville, to see what policies they had in place as it relates to their employees carrying on duty within county their county or governmental entities. And all of those other agencies do not allow their employees either to carry on the property within the premises. However, they do allow within the trunks of their vehicles in parking lots to keep their weapons not invisible. I think that that's one of the applications of the law, that it's not visible in their cars, but none of them allow them to carry while on duty or in a county or city vehicle unless their duties set forth that they are required to carry. So it's my recommendation that we keep our policy in place the way it is today. Any other questions?
How many, well, never mind, because we can't. So, have we had any instances where there was, this policy has been violated?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't want to go in specifics. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Ed, please. Ed, state your name and what you do.
My name is Ed Elam. I'm the risk manager for Rutherford County. As far as my role in this is I deal with a lot of the lawsuits, so it's after the fact. Most of the lawsuits have to deal with enforcing policy. So if you set the policy and you set a set of standards, then you're going to have to follow them. And if the policies and the standards are not followed, then that's where you get into a lot of lawsuits. As far as the policy on guns, we can provide insurance for the county. The problem you have is every time that we go back up for renewal or looking for a different vendor or put it out for bid, they always want to look at your handbook. And your handbook has a, it's tells you how serious you are about your policies and how you, what standard you hold your employees to. So any policy that may be changed, it would not be something that you just randomly say, let's change it. Sonia's the one that does most of those policies, gets with Nick, and there's a lot of time put into it. So my biggest concern is that it needs to be a very strong policy, and it needs, if there's a change made, it needs to be a very strong policy and a very strict policy to avoid any additional lawsuits and costs to the county. So my recommendation is to leave the policy as the existing policy as it is.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Chairman Reed.
Sonia, exactly how many employees do we have that the handbook covers?
It covers around 1,200 employees.
1,200 employees. You know, from the time that I've served as commissioner, we've had several different things change as far as employees have been concerned. They've dealt with many different issues, not only the employee handbook, but dealing with the changes in employees' insurance, pension plans, and things of that type. I remember the first time as a county commissioner when we had changes within the insurance plans, my telephone rang off the wall from employees calling me concerned about their insurance. We had changes within the retirement. My phone rang off the wall. I'd get out of my truck here on the square and I'd have employees walk up to me and talk to me about it. On this issue right here, the second time around, I've received 3 emails and 1 phone call, and none of those were employees. I have talked to employees concerning this issue, but not because they engaged the conversation, but because I engaged the conversation, just to get their opinions. Now, I do that on a regular basis anyway. I talk to our employees and what we do and how we do it. And in this situation right here, we have to look at it differently from just as county commissioners and this sort of ways, once we're dealing with this, we have to look at it without emotion. When you get into what we're talking about today and how we're doing this, you have to look at it without emotion due to the fact that there are so many different situations within dealing with this policy, as you've just heard from the department heads and those who deal with this on a regular basis. So I have to admit, I have spent hours pulling up what other individuals do, what other organizations do, what other counties are doing, what the professionals recommend and how you do this. And then I also take a look at our own county and how we're dealing with this too. Here in Rutherford County right now with our employees, and I believe Sonia will tell you this, we're in the process of trying to recruit talent individuals to our offices. And you have to stop and think, can this affect that recruitment? Would this possibly deter some individuals? I mean, that's something you have to look at too, is do they want to walk in a situation like that? And I think as a county commissioner, I look at it as we got to look at what we do as far as the work area of where these people are coming to work. Are we providing a safe place for them to come to work and they feel that way? Now, what I also have to think about too is where I come from. I come from the corporative world, where I worked for 44 years in a building that held 800 employees. And that organization had pretty much the same handbook that we do here. As I think I said in the last meeting, I think I was the only one in that meeting that actually had my life threatened. And I said the way they solved that there is they moved me closer to the front door, and they took care of that problem, I think. But I did. I actually did. I had, I was a columnist. I was a writer for the organization, and I wrote on different issues, everything from animal welfare to hunting and things of this type. And I had people that would actually do that. And we just dealt with it in the best way that we could. But that organization dealt with it there, and I worked with a lot of employees, and this issue never come up in that situation, but we had pretty much the same thing. And as a county commissioner, I have to look at it to these employees right here because they're so vital and so important to us. So I'm also an individual that when you talk about firearms and guns, I had a rifle placed in my hand when I was 6 years old. That's just the way life was. My father taught me how to hunt, but he taught me responsibility and what it was all about. And he taught me what a weapon was for, and it wasn't a thing that you just went out there and played with. There were responsibilities, and all we had to deal with it. And I think right now that we as the county here, we have responsibilities to our employees. And I think our responsibilities, we covered that, I think, in the last meeting. And I think what we need to be looking at is how we make the workplace a safer place for them. And that's what I'll be looking at when we come up to our vote to decide with this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Reed, you were instrumental in bringing the Second Amendment sanctuary county to a vote. Am I correct?
You're right.
Do you feel in any way that this policy infringes on their rights?
Not in the workplace as such. We're still following the procedure which the state law requires. They still can carry it within their vehicle. I think, like I said before, the responsibility that we need to be looking at as a county is making this a safe place for them, where they feel like that they are not in a situation where they need to carry that weapon here. Now, what you got to look at too, you have so many other employees that are not wanting a weapon. That they have that concern, because I had employees tell me that, said, I'm concerned about an individual sitting beside me with that weapon. But now, yes, I'm the one that, in fact, I'm the one that drafted the resolution that we approved. I drafted that resolution, and I still believe in that Second Amendment, and this is a Second Amendment sanctuary county for the citizens. But when we're getting to the point where you are bringing that within this building right here, we have individuals that do carry those firearms. But when you get to the point where you're bringing it to the employment right here, such as our sheriff's department, they practice every day, every week, of what to do in situations when a weapon is pulled on you. When you have to face that situation of whether you're going to use it or not use it. And that's the thing that would possibly be a concern. I don't know how many people that actually have a weapon has been actually fired at. I've been shot at. I have been shot at. I've heard a bullet come over my head, and it's not a good thing to feel, to enjoy. But, I think, as I've said before, it's our responsibility to see what we can do to make this building and other buildings within our system safe for our employees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and thank you for calling this meeting and tabling the last one and making this one where people feel more comfortable that we are being transparent with this issue. Personally, I'm a 25-year-plus member of the NRA. When I ran in the state senate for 16 years, every 4 years I ran, I received an A rating from the NRA. I'm a life member of the Tennessee Firearms Association. I'm a carry permit holder. One of my best friends is Ronnie Barrett. So I totally support the Second Amendment personally. When it comes to my position as mayor, I support the county commission's decision in the direction that it takes in prohibiting firearms in county buildings. And if you listen to what everything was said today, from insurance to liabilities, it makes sense. And I will support the county commission, even though I don't vote. I will support the county commission and its and support it in the direction that it takes, either for or against. I feel that county commissioners already have the ability and can continue to carry in this building. That is permissible. Is that correct, Ms. Stevenson? County commissioners can carry. So I thank you for putting this together and letting it go to the full commission, and let the full commission make that decision.
I thought long and hard about this. I've received phone calls, I've received social media attacks, I've received concerned citizens, and I believe it's a very important issue. I believe it was important that I formed this ad hoc committee because I didn't want it to be a 3-minute discussion among 21 commissioners. I wanted it to be around the policy heads, and I wanted it to be about risk management, and I want it to be about human resources. My stand on this is that I want the policy to stay the way it is. And my stance on this is the fact that I worry about the liability of this county. We live in a very litigious world, and one of the things that we have to look at is the simple fact that I feel concerned about the liability of it. Now, the question that has come to my attention is that the ones who are for carrying is their argument, and it's some, I'm not saying all, but the ones that are brought to me is that they have the right to defend themselves. And if I felt that our safety of our employees is a question, if it is something that we have to address, then I understand. But I think that we have had no shootings, which doesn't mean it couldn't happen, but you also can't tell me that it can't be a negligent firearm discharge neither. So I feel that I look at this far as going to safety and immunity of the law that could hurt this county very much. I kind of debated on what I want to do here. I kind of debated on, do we get up here and we got, 8 people and give us their opinion and not listen to somebody else, not to hear the other side? And I don't think that's fair. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to suspend the rules, and I'm going to allow Commissioner Rather to speak, and I'm going to allow Citizen Edward Phillips to speak. And now, the reason I'm doing that is because I want them to make sure that we hear everybody on this. I'm only allowing 2 speakers and no more, and I'm allowing 3 minutes. I feel like that's adequate enough. And Commissioner Rather, if you'd like to come up here, sir.
Not sure in 55 years I've ever been able to talk for just 3 minutes.
I'll give you 3 more then.
Okay. All right. Let me tell you how this all began. First of all, when I was elected, I've said it, Chairman Reed, Harris, Mayor Ketron's heard it. I've said time after time, the greatest asset this county has is not the mayor, the commissioners, or bank account, it's the employees. Boots on the ground, people out there doing the work. That's the greatest asset we have. I can go to Nissan and say the same thing, Amazon. Those are your greatest assets. So how did this all begin? It began with a couple signs on a courthouse window. Do you remember that? That's how it all started. Because we were violating people's Second Amendment rights by having those signs prohibiting them from bringing a firearm, a handgun, if they had a permit, into this building. Those signs have been up since Judge Clayton was up there. We don't have judicial proceedings. I had one commissioner said, that's what we do every month. I said, no, we're not judicial, we're legislative. So we agreed to take the signs down, and then it popped up about employees, that I was talking about employees. I'd never thought about employees. After that time, I did not engage employees, they engaged me, department heads. And that's where all this started, just because of a couple signs on the window in the courthouse. I don't know how we ended up here. And when it was discussed about forming this committee, I made the comment in the steering committee meeting that I was for it because we were moving forward, and I hoped that we were going to try to figure out a way, if humanly possible, to make it work. My fear was we come up with every reason to not let it work. Now, Sonia, I've known her since junior high. Ed, I've known you my entire life. You have a job. You have a job. I've had HR training. At the top of the list, HR's job is to reduce litigation with employees, right? Your job title says it all, risk management. We don't want risk. My question is, now that the discussion has taken place and if something happened to an employee, is there risk? Because we talked about it, we kept the handbook the way it was. Is there risk there? There's risk everywhere. You can sue the Pope for being Catholic. You're going to get a lawsuit regardless. You can fire somebody for just cause, you're going to get in a lawsuit. I think we all know that. I totally support the security. I've talked to the mayor about this or made my comments about armed security in this building. Didn't know we were going out to other buildings, but especially this one that houses trustee's office and the mayor. There needs to be some sort of security. I agree with that. I totally support that. My problem is it seems like we're stuck on in-house security for employees. But when you got codes officials, engineering staff, planning staff, tax assessor that goes out to where there's no phone reception, armed security going to follow them or ride with them? That's what the employees that have contacted me are concerned about, not necessarily in the building. Now, I'm going to say this, and it's out here for the public to hear. I carry a gun. I've been carrying a gun forever, and I have a permit to do so. And I am not concerned when I'm in a commission meeting or a committee meeting. When I was on BZA, I was not concerned about what happened in here because we had deputies in here. I don't want to get into a gunfight and crossfire. The deputies, I'm going to duck and run or scream for my mama or whatever. I was more concerned about what happened between the courthouse door at night, between there and my truck, and after I left here. That's why I carried a gun here. I still do. Always will. It has nothing to do with inside the building. It has to do, and I keep bringing up Burks Hollow Road. You're very familiar with that, I hope. There's other places that our employees are going. They don't have armed guards. They're out there on their own. So I'm more concerned about on the road and the trust that we put in those employees that have a handgun carry permit. Those who don't, they're scared of guns, they don't like guns, I get that. I'm very familiar with people like that. I'm related to some of them. But we have to trust the permit holders to take very serious the fact that they can carry and their responsibility. I remember at the sheriff's office, my captain, Steve Spence, John Frazier, the sergeant. Even as a sheriff's deputy, you are liable for that bullet, correct? And the saying was, you don't want to fire that weapon and shoot a busload of nuns 20 feet behind your perpetrator. So you're liable for that. And the handgun carry permit holders understand that. And with that being said, I do not think, and I've talked to the employees that engage me, I've talked to them about this, I do not think the handgun carry permit class is really worth much. Honestly, it's not. It was a joke. So I've talked to some of these employees that engage me, and we talked about training. We talked about keeping it concealed. We talked about, only carrying it out of the office, maybe not in the office. There are so many ways that it could possibly work, but the liability is there regardless, period. Liability is all around us every day. You get in a car and drive, you're facing liability. Somebody's going to sue you. All across this country. North Dakota, South Dakota, Florida, New Mexico, they have, and Mount Juliet, they have allowed employees to carry firearms. In all the other ones I mentioned, other than Mount Juliet, it was a result of a mass shooting. And I have preached this to employees for decades. I bought a business 7 years ago. The very first thing that came out of my mouth to my employees was, we are not going to be reactive. We've got to be proactive. I don't want to put out fires. I want to stop the fires before they spark, and life will be so much easier. So I don't want our county to be reactive. I want to be proactive, at least have that discussion. What could it look like if we did this? Instead of, here's all the reasons why we shouldn't. Recently, we've all heard about the mass shootings. You turn on the news every single morning and evening, and there's somebody's been shot. Now, is it here? Well, I think it's going up, but it's not far down the road, about 25 miles. There's shootings everywhere, every single day. The gun violence, the Capitol protest, and we're preparing for all 50 states, their state capitals. There's no telling what's going to happen. We saw what happened with the U.S. Capitol the other day. We recently, Nashville, I say we, I'm including Middle Tennessee, a bombing. There are people that are unstable. I did not realize how many we had until I became a reserve deputy at the sheriff's office, and it scared me to death. Some of the calls we got, there's some mental illness in this county and all across the country. We had a guy blow up 2nd Avenue and several streets over. We had a nurse driving down the interstate, minding her own business, going to work. She gets shot and killed. The protest. I was here on the square the last protest and watched them march, and there were several hundred between Rutherford County MPD and THP. There were snipers on the roof. They were everywhere. And I was kind of bothered to even be there, but I wanted to be there because we've done a lot of work on this courthouse, and I kind of wanted to fight them if they're going to mess up the trees and the yard and the pavers and everything else we spent money on, but it's very volatile sometimes. It is the employer's decision. I'm an employer. I've been an employer, and I understand it's the county's decision to make. And whatever that decision is, that's what the decision is. And the employer, by law, has a right to make that decision. I get it, and I'll stand behind it. I just hope the day's not coming where we back up and say, we probably shouldn't have done that, or maybe we need to change, but we decide that after something really bad's happened. I heard that there was discussion, and this is hearsay, in the last meeting about law enforcement showing up. There's, let's say, a gunfight in the planning office. Law enforcement showing up, they don't know who the bad guy is. And that's somewhat of a concern. I'm not answering my phone, I'm going to pull this up. And I actually learned this at the sheriff's office. The FBI has a rule of threes. Long-time FBI standard. The majority of gunfights are over in 3 seconds or less. occur at 3 yards or less and involve 3 shots or less. So if a county employee happened to get in a gunfight in an office, law enforcement could be standing at the front door. They will not get there in time before it's all over with. And either the bad guy's running or he's on the ground and the handgun carry permit holder has his holstered and he's freaking out, or she is freaking out. And she's waiting on law enforcement to show up, and law enforcement shows up and does their job. Again, there's liability either way. We've talked about training. I'm telling you, the handgun carry permit class, if we at some point decide to change this policy, there definitely needs to be more firearms training and liability training. It needs to be driven home. You're liable for that bullet, wherever it goes. I get that. Again, there's liability if we keep the policy the way it is and an employee goes out in the county to do their job and they get shot. Is a family member going to sue them because we decided not to change the policy? It could happen. Like I said, you can sue everybody for everything. So, with that being said, it's not so much what happens inside the building, it's what happens outside the building, and our employees, our greatest asset's right to protect themselves when they're out on the road. Now, if we allow them to carry their gun with them on the road, but they cannot bring it in the building, that's part of working this out to see what we can do to keep them protected and give them the right to protect themselves. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the time.
Go ahead.
Well, just as we never know what's going to happen from day to day, I didn't know I was going to get caught up before you guys, so appreciate the time. If maybe I can elaborate a little bit. I mean, Commissioner Rather did a great job covering most of it. I mean, as he said, there's plenty of liability any decision you guys decide to make. We have an opportunity to give our employees for the county a chance to defend themselves if that situation arises. It appears from what Commissioner Rather said, there hadn't been enough discussion about this issue. And one of the reasons why I stood up and challenged the legality of the first legal notice that officially made it to the paper was not because I thought either one of you guys were trying to hide anything, but because I felt that the county citizens needed to know better what their county government was going to be speaking about. You described something as ad hoc committee. No one knows what that's about. And I think we could see just in the audience right now, we've got a few people that showed up today. I think if you gave the county employees an opportunity to maybe complete a survey, decide whether or not they want this. I mean, I know you can't decide what you do based solely on a survey, but it'll give you a better idea of who may or may not want. I know there's ways you can probably set it up so it's only county employees that are answering. You can keep it internal. So if I had to suggest something, maybe before you officially make a decision, give them a chance to have a word. Because as you know as well as I do, county employees aren't going to be upfront about everything they want to see changed on the county commission. I'm not saying you guys directly, but there's been times in the past where there has been county employees have spoke up and may have been reprimanded for their actions. Like I said, I'm not accusing anyone here today of that. But you know, if you've worked for this county long enough, you know it has happened. So give them a chance. Just give them a chance to answer whether or not they would like an opportunity to choose to defend themselves. Because at the end of the day, we never know what is going to happen from day to day. It could happen tomorrow. And we may be having a totally different discussion. And this opportunity for them to defend themselves will also save tax dollars. I understand needing possible security here in this building. We're growing as a county. There's a lot of things going on in this county. And it's been mentioned enough that a lot of our county buildings are not set up directly for security. But give the employees an opportunity. That's all I ask. Thank you.
All right. We have heard both sides. We've heard from Commissioner. We've heard from a citizen who seems to organized a movement on this. I appreciate every one of you. I thank you all. And I think it's come to a point where we need to vote on this matter. The question is, do we change the policy to allow employees to carry guns? Do I have a motion to vote?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Reed?
we've heard from, I think, everybody. We've heard from both sides. We've heard good discussion here today. At this time, I think what we have to do, from what we have seen and what we discussed, that at this time we'll continue on with the policy that we currently have in the handbook.
Do I have a second? Sheriff, it's you. All right, the motion is that we are keeping the policy the way it is.
Mr. Harris, just a point of clarification, if I may, just so everybody's understanding, I think everybody does, that this is just a recommendation, and this is the recommendation of this body that is going to have to report back to steering. And then, so at the next steering committee meeting, I would suggest that Chairman Harris report back the recommendation of this committee, assuming that this passes, and if there's any further action that needs to be taken at steering, it could be taken then.
Well, I mean, that's what Ad-Hoc does. So, so we're recommending to the steering committee whether or not we're keeping the policy the same as it is. Does everybody understand the motion? All right, let's go.
Sheriff Fitzhugh? Director Stevenson? Director Elam?
Yes.
Director Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is there anything else anybody needs to say? Since there's none, this meeting's adjourned.